Okay, hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to use SquigLink. And on this thing we can look at all of these different companies and all these different IEMs and headphones measured by various people. Currently I'm on Hawaii Bad Boy, Bad Guy, Good Audio Reviews. And we can look at all the measurements he has done. We have targets down here. We have like his target, the Bad Guy 2022 target. And these targets are subjective targets by various people of how like they think a headphone or IEM should measure. I typically use diffuse field because this is a blank scientific slate that you can put, it's not some random person's headphone IEM target that they want, So like if we look at a lot of my measurements, it will say diffuse field headphone target, for example, down here, which means, I'm using diffuse field. And then this is the biodynamic DT990s in yellow right here, So this is how it should measure on my target. And we can see this, this headphone measures really similar to my target. Except in the sub bass, the sub bass, it's kind of thin in the sub bass because it rolls off here. It should, keep going up and be more boomy. But besides that, the rest of this response is extremely close to my target. So what we can do is we can literally go to the oratory. We can go to this GitHub oratory measurement database and go to over ear. And, this is some of his measurements. And we can go to like biodynamic DT990s with worn pads. And we can go to the CSV. And then we can download this. And then we can go back to this SquigLink and go to equalizer. And upload frequency response. And, there we go. Now we got the biodynamic DT990s. We can flatten diffuse field. And now we have basically, a very similar measurement to this here, as we can see. Okay, so it's like the same measurement. And now we can use this as like a template when we can compare, this to like the earbuds that I'm using, the EM6L, the SimGot EM6L. We can change the color down here because dark blue is kind of hard to see. So we got yellow. So we can see the SimGot actually match my target in a lot of ways better than the DT990s. We can see in the bass here that the SimGot have a lot more bass, deep sub bass that I was complaining about, Anyways, I think I closed it by accident. But yeah, we can see the deep sub bass is more powerful on the yellow line here on the SimGot. But they have the same high mid scoop, the same treble extension, diffuse field, the same warmy mid bass, warm mid bass. It's the same. It's basically the same in the highs. It's just a little different in the sub bass. You get more deep rumble on the SimGot. So we can do these comparisons here, and they came out recently with a new one called Hype 2 by The Audio. Like so that's, so we got some differences here on the audio. For example, in this region, there's a scoop in the mid bass on the Hype 2. It kind of scoops down here, and this actually thins out, male vocals, fundamental frequencies, stuff like that. So we can see that here on their page for the Audio Hype 2. 200 hertz bass shelf means that the mids are flat and neutral, which accurately represents tone of studio monitors used by professional engineers. So the bass is powerful in thunderness, but is well controlled by keeping a tight 200 hertz bass shelf. So, I prefer a little bit warmer. We can see in the, around 200 hertz. There's even propaganda like this. Sean Olive, Harmon How to Listen, telling people that the bass is bleeding into the mids, bass is bleeding into the mids, and then the Mud Enjoyer is like, no. So that's the 200 hertz mud scoop we're seeing there, which kind of gives a blown out sub bass effect. And we can compare. We can get rid of the DT990s and compare the EM6L to this. So we can see these are earbud versus earbud, that they both are very similarly tuned. They both have the same deep sub bass. They both have the same high mid scoop for a wide sound stage. They both have diffuse field level treble, except in the mid bass here we have this scoop here. So which one is done correctly in the mids in the mid bass? It's subjective, to be honest with you, because it really depends on listening levels. So the louder you listen to something, the less. So we can see down here, if you're listening at like 30 dBs, it's at 200 hertz, it's very tilted. At 200 hertz, it's very tilted. But like once you get to listening levels like 80 decibels, that 200 hertz is much flatter, and then it rises, below 200 hertz. So the lower the listening level, the more 200 hertz mud. The higher listening the level, the less you actually have to boost the bass. So the bass is actually flat around 100 dBs, which is ear damaging. But the lower listening levels that you go, the more tilted it is at 200 hertz. So it depends really on your listening level if you want that kind of scoopage right here. I think it's actually not necessary. It's kind of a gimmick that a lot of people have been hyping up, which is probably the reason why it's called the Hype 2. So this is how you can look at and compare a lot of different earbuds, a lot of different headphones, and really see what's out there. And a lot of times, like we can look at like a lot of people say the Biodynamic DT900 Pro X are cool. Well, some people. And we can look at it here, and we can see in orange that the Biodynamic DT900 Pro X have this huge cut at 4K, which is terrible. The treble goes down considerably, which is bad. It doesn't have a very strong deep mid bass or sub bass, while the other ones are way up here. So, you end up with a very lifeless mid bass and sub bass on the DT900 Pro X. You end up with this weird coloration problem here. You end up with this treble high frequency deterioration here. So these are bad spots. You get this hype that's right up here. This spot is poking out because, it's all screwed up on either side. This dip makes this region really prominent and fatiguing, which is the reason why you want a completely intact round treble. Like the rest of these frequency responses, there's no jagged stuff. But up here we see some jagged stuff. That's not good. So, this is how we can compare things scientifically, objectively, and see if they're any good. And you'd be surprised just how bad a lot of stuff is out here. Balance earpads, DT1990, we can look at those. So, you can be here all day and, comparing and contrasting. Okay, these things have balanced ear pads. You know, these are pretty expensive. The balanced ear pad DT 1990s. They have this huge 8K peak. They, you know, cut down here. They cut down here a little bit. We can see they're very warm in the mid bass, the mids. They're very warm and muddy. They don't have a very strong, deep sub bass. So, you know, we can see these different characteristics of audio equipment. This is really bad, to be honest with you. The 4K cut and the 8K peak, and then it cuts down again. It's very, you know, intense. But, you know, we can see they all have the same 3K ear gain soundstage scoop. 3K, okay, this thing. So once you learn about these squiggly lines, you'll realize that, you know, this really determines the sound, and depending on the person's measuring rig, there could be some anomalies that are not really there. So you need somebody with a really accurate measuring rig, and you need to, know what measurements to trust, and, stuff like that, and what you're looking at. But this can save you, a lot of time and money. Let's get rid of the, do I have any Sennheisers downloaded? Kind of want to see what this one looks. Oh boy. So this one, we can see all the treble is pulled down on the Neumann NDH30s. That's terrible. So, we can really look at this stuff and, see what's out there, This one has a really weak bass, the Philips Ship 9500s. So, we can really see what's out there, where all the problems are. Okay, this is really weak mid bass and sub bass. It has the ear gain scoop considerably. It's got a lot of shout right there, around 5-6K. It scoops down the treble, so that's some funky deterioration, coloration problems here in the treble. But it does go back up. So we're losing a lot of information with these two cuts. We only have these two treble peaks that are really giving us any information. So it's really colored, and you're losing a lot of information. And there's not a very strong deep bass. So it's very analytical and thin sounding. And then we have the ear gain scoop for a wide soundstage. So, I hope this helps you guys. There's so many people out there that don't know these things, and they just listen to reviewers. But there is very objective, accurate way of, finding good equipment instead of listening to audio gear reviewers and hippies. It's very scientific, and a lot of people, they literally look at this and they're like, why are you showing me squiggly lines? Like, you can't review this stuff by looking at squiggly lines. If you're competent enough and know what you're doing, you can. And it's a lot more pinpoint, accurate, and precise than any reviewer who just puts it on their head and describes it, like a hippie. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.